Hi, I'm Fred, head coach at Usuli. Welcome to the Epic Endurance podcast, where we take a deep dive into endurance, strength, and transformation. Today, we are going to talk about gear ratio. Gear ratio is an often overlooked and crucial aspect of cycling, which can be the difference between nailing a climb or grinding to a halt. In order to understand gear ratio, we're going to break things into 4 parts. The first one, the basics. What is gear ratio? To first understand gear ratio, you need to understand the mechanics of your bicycle. You have 2 kinds of cogs. The front chain ring, which is near the pedals, and the cassette by the back wheel. The ratio of number of teeth between these 2 cogs determine the gear ratio. So if you have, let's say, a 40 teeth cog at the front and a 10 teeth cog at the back, then you'll have a gear ratio of 4. What we do is we divide the front by the back cog to get the gear ratio. To illustrate this better, I made a small calculator. This calculator is available for everyone. It's free, and this is just to understand a bit how it works. Here you can select the number of cog on the front chain ring, so 50 or 40, and will give you a range, and the number of cogs on the sprocket or the cassette, and again it will give you a range of cogs. This is useful to basically understand the mechanics and how this ratio impacts the number of rotation that your back wheel does with every pedal stroke. Feel free to play a bit with this. It's fairly simple. You don't have to get obsessed with this, but this is the foundation to understand gear ratio. Number 2 is understanding how gear ratio affects speed. To get speed from gear ratio, we need to know the size of your wheels. Wheels differ if you're riding a road bike, a mountain bike, a foldable bike, but they're usually standard. The most standard wheel size is what we call a 700C. And if we have your gear ratio and we do have your cadence and we know the wheel diameter and therefore we know its circumference, then we can determine simply how fast the wheel is moving and how fast you're going. So this will be whether you're on a bicycle, on a motorcycle, it will work the same way. Number of turns and wheel size determine speed. To illustrate this better, I made another calculator called gear ratio to speed to power. Normally we power express in a non-linear way. We call this torque, not very important. This is the simple version of this calculator where you can choose metric or imperial. And again, you can choose the number of cogs, number of teeth on your front cog, on your chain ring. So here 50, rear cog, 28. The standard wheel size here is 700C, so this is going to be for most road bikes and triathlon bikes. You can choose others. 650 is often used for women dedicated bicycles. You do have a couple of mountain bikes and so forth, but you can also override this value if you want, but we're not going to do that. And your cadence, and here you can see that basically gives you the gear ratio here, as well as the speed at which you're going in kilometers per hour, because we chose metric, or the power needed to achieve this speed. We'll look at this a bit further up. Simply said, if we had this, and let's say we went switch to 24 on the back, gear ratio changes, speed changes. If the cadence was, let's say, higher, and you really wanted to spin, then we're going a little faster. Now, there's a limitation because the number of cogs here are quite high, but if, say, we were running a compact and maybe you had 10, we're going extremely fast at 63.89 kilometers per hour. The power is a little insane, but this is basically how the mechanics work. By knowing your gear ratio, cadence, and wheel circumference, you can determine your speed. Part number 3 will be to look on how you can utilize this to see the power you need to output on a specific climb. So we're going to trigger the advanced mode here. And what we need is we need to have your weight. We need to know the gradient of the climb to determine this. We need to know drivetrain efficiency is not extremely important. Don't touch this. Probably 98 is usually okay. CDA is the air resistance, whereas CRR is the resistance of the tire. If you don't know, don't touch it. Usually I'll say for a upright position is probably between 3 and 4, 0.3 and 0.4. We can change this, it's not going to matter too much. Your total climb and the distance will determine the gradient. I recommend using shorter segments, so 160 is long. We'll say we're doing a 5-kilometer segment of a climb of, let's say, 120 meters, which gives us a gradient of 2.4%. And obviously we are going pretty fast. This is going to be very, very hard, but if we were, let's say, to change our gear ratio, and let's say we are on a 28 here, and our cadence was, let's say, 75, we will be going at 17 kilometers per hour, and we will need to do this to have 125 watts. If you have a power meter, then the watts is the work you're doing. Obviously, if you change your weight, this is going to impact this. So let's say if our bike setup and ourselves were much lighter, or 65 kilograms, then the power changes accordingly. If we're to go a little heavier, then you'll need more watts because you have to fight the forces of gravity. So yeah, I find this extremely useful, especially when you need to do some race recon. And this is what I'm going to show you right now is 2 live examples of using these calculators to see if you have enough gears, if you have the proper setup, or if you have enough power to climb. Some setups cannot be changed. For example, my bicycle is a 1x. There's only 1 chain ring at the front, and the range of the cassette I have at the back is limited. Therefore, if the gradient gets too high, the only thing I can do, 2 things, is reduce my cadence or just make sure that I have enough watts. And this is probably difficult for novice athletes. Let's go to examples. Example number 1 is going to be climbs, most famous climbs. Let's go for the Alpe d'Huez, which is one of the most famous climbs in France. The Alpe d'Huez is 13.8 kilometer long and about 1,850 meter of climb. The total climb is 1,850. Let's leave this, maybe put down a bit, because we're not assuming a very, very aerodynamic position. Let's say that my bicycle and myself are 85 kilos in total, and I'm on my 1x and I'm trying to grind, so I'm going to very low cadence, which is maybe not very healthy. You can see how much trouble I will have even at 60 pedal stroke per minute. 50, I'll still have to go very close to 400 watts. So obviously not the best. If we're putting something much easier there, much easier, still at 261 watts to climb this. So we have the gradient 13.41%. And yeah, with this you can see, can I do that? Can I maintain? How low can I go? Obviously, if you're a triathlete, going to very low cadences on climbs is going to create a lot of muscular fatigue, which is something that you do not want. So ideally, when you cycle, trying to stay at 90. If you have enough gears, then ideally you would want to do that. If the climb was much easier, let's say if we were just dropping, I'm just changing this course a bit, we're setting a 7%, which is still quite high. Then you could see I could actually, with this kind of setup, have probably maybe it's a bit much for most people, but a healthier kind of cadence and a power output that might be sustainable for most. You also see your finish time, so you'll have to grind this for an hour and 4 minutes. So that's our example number 1. For our example number 2, what we're going to do is we're going to do an Ironman course, and I chose this one. This is the Ironman 70.3 in Mallorca, which is a very famous race and very pretty. If you go onto the Ironman website, you go on course, and then you can see the course here, and you have a little elevation map, which is not perfect. This could be, you could try to guesstimate and try just to take into account the steepest part, because this does not really matter, and taking the average is not going to be really important for you. It's just to make sure that you can climb this part with your setup. So you have about, let's say, this is 20, this is 30, we're going a bit before, this is going a bit after. There's maybe 6K of 400 something elevation climb. We could guesstimate and input the data, but what we have on this course, and some race organizers do give us some GPX files. If you download this, and I am going to use Google Earth. On Google Earth, you can open GPX files. So I really recommend having Google Earth on your computer if you do some cycling for recon or just checking places around. Okay, so this is Google Earth. If you open Google Earth, normally you should see something like this. If you go and you open a file, like we're going to do right now, and you open this GPX file, it will ask you if you want to have the tracks, the line string. We don't really care about tracks. We're just going to do line strings and click on OK. And it's going to create many points on the map. So this is the course of the bicycle. And if we go to this place here and we go to tracks, Ironman, and we want to look at the path. Here we have the path, and we want to see the elevation profile, which is what we're interested in. So second, right click on path, elevation profile, and here we can take a segment. We're going to choose the hardest point. So it's going to be this part, and we're coming down to elevation gain 480 meters on 7.5 kilometers. 480 meter gain on 7.5. Right, and let's say I'm still on my Mach 1 by. I'm going to make things difficult for myself. I will have to grind 316 watts. I could try to go at lower cadence, but you can see this will be pretty hard for most athletes to achieve without really getting punished. On an easier setup, like we are having again 42, 28, and you can see again the number of watts that you're doing and how long it will take you. So this is a good way to check if you need to change your setup, if you have enough watts, and also in the best condition, what kind of cadence you might also practice for specific climbs. So if you do have a race with where you don't have so much leverage and you cannot change too much your cassette, or you already maxed out, or the other variables are not things that you can really change, then you can probably induce some practice at specific cadence to prepare your body for this kind of intensities. Here in this specific case, at least being able to pull 40 minutes at 190 watts without feeling any fatigue will be a great thing. Or, maybe increasing a bit and seeing how this plays. I hope this is helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a message, and have a great day.